Good afternoon, everyone. First, I'd like to start with Colombia, and we actually have a guest for you on that. I have the following statement attributable to the spokesperson. The Secretary General is saddened by reports that more than 160 people have lost their lives, with many others injured, following the 7.4 magnitude earthquake that struck Colombia yesterday. He expresses his solidarity with the people and government of Colombia and extends his condolences to the families of the victims and wishes for a speedy recovery to all those affected, as reports emerge of collapsed homes and other significant damage, and as the authorities work to assess the full impact. The United Nations is in close contact with the Colombian authorities and is supporting the government-led response as requested. And I have a few further details on Colombia for you. In addition to what the resident coordinator said, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says assessments continue, and authorities report thousands of injuries, and the death toll continues to rise. Initial reports indicate that 12 departments have been impacted by the earthquake, with thousands of homes damaged and hundreds destroyed. Health and education facilities, as well as roads and airports, have also been impacted. The government is leading and coordinating the response, and shelter, food, safe drinking water, and healthcare are among the most urgent needs, as the resident coordinator also pointed out. For its part, the World Food Programme is closely monitoring the situation and remains in contact with national authorities and humanitarian partners as assessments continue. Following the Government of Colombia's request for international assistance, WFP has started mobilizing support and stands ready to assist impacted populations with food assistance and cash-based response mechanisms. WFP notes that approximately close to 4,500 metric tons of food are available through pre-positioned stocks in Colombia, located close enough to affected areas to enable a rapid response if needed, with additional supplies available through WFP's regional and global supply networks. Ramiz Al-Akbarov, the Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, warned the Security Council today that while the fragile ceasefire in Gaza and regional tensions consume much of the international community's attention, the West Bank is at the breaking point. He said that settler violence has reached unprecedented levels. So far this year, the UN has documented more than 1,430 incidents involving Israeli settlers that resulted in casualties, property damage, or both, affecting approximately 260 Palestinian communities. Many incidents occurred in the presence of Israeli forces. The pattern is clear, Mr. Al-Akbarov said. Palestinian populations are increasingly being forcibly displaced from villages across the West Bank before settlers seize the vacated land. He said that the situation in the West Bank must be treated as an emergency, requiring urgent action. The concern is not only the continued expansion of settlements, but the speed and systematic manner in which new facts are being created on the ground. He added that these are interconnected steps, not isolated developments. They are reshaping the West Bank, weakening Palestinian governance, and advancing de facto annexation. UNICEF Deputy Executive Director Hannah Suleiman told the Security Council that between January 2024 and the end of July this year, 174 Palestinian children were verified killed by the UN in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. That is more than one child every week. More than 1,500 were injured. Nearly half of those injured were wounded by live ammunition. Over the same period, she said, 3 Israeli children were killed and 15 injured. And further on the occupied Palestinian territory, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says that most of the population lacks sufficient water, sanitation, and hygiene access. The population in Gaza, that is. More than 1.3 million people, over half the population, have less than 6 liters of water per person per day, well below the 15-liter emergency standard. A further 700,000 people have less than 9 liters of domestic water per day, affecting hygiene and household needs. 3 in 4 people rely on water trucked in, with partners reaching over 2,500 collection points daily. Only half of households have access to basic sanitation, and more than 900,000 people report exposure to accumulated garbage. consistent funding and greater access for spare parts and landfills remain essential. Turning to the West Bank, OCHA also reports continued settler-related violence. On Sunday in Nablus Governorate, Israeli settlers installed a gate isolating several Palestinian families, including children, from essential services such as emergency health care. Meanwhile, attacks on healthcare have spiked, with the World Health Organization recording 37 in July alone, up from a monthly average of 10 earlier this year, and nearly 100 for the year so far, mostly affecting health transport. In 25 cases, health workers or patients were arrested. The UN reiterates its call for the protection of civilians, health workers, and health facilities, unimpeded access to healthcare, and accountability for perpetrators of unlawful attacks. Today marks the 20th anniversary of the unanimous passage of Security Council Resolution 1701 concerning Lebanon and Israel. The core elements of the resolution remain as relevant today as ever: the need for a complete cessation of hostilities, the extension of Lebanese state authority and a monopoly over weapons, the withdrawal of the Israel Defense Force, respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity, and negotiations towards a permanent ceasefire and long-term solution to the conflict. The United Nations, including through the Office of the Special Coordinator and the UN Interim Force in Lebanon, remains committed to supporting Lebanon and Israel implement their obligations and the full implementation of Resolution 1701. Special Coordinator Officer in Charge Jean Arnaud is continuing his diplomatic engagement with all actors to support implementation of the ceasefire and Resolution 1701. Meanwhile, UNIFIL peacekeepers remain in position throughout southern Lebanon, implementing their mandate under Resolution 1701. A commemorative ceremony will be held today at UNIFIL headquarters in Nakura. The UNIFIL head of mission and force commander, Major General Deodato Abnara, will lead a tribute to the 7 peacekeepers who lost their lives in the line of duty amidst hostilities in recent months. The High Commissioner for Human Rights commended the Lebanese parliament today for its decision to abolish the death penalty. And turning to West Africa, yesterday was the first day of the Ministerial Humanitarian Forum of the Alliance of Sahel States, which comprises Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. The forum, which is the second to be held, is taking place in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, with UN agencies, non-governmental organizations, donors, civil society organizations, academics, and government officials taking part. The event seeks to take stock of the complex humanitarian situations impacting these 3 countries, as well as adopt concrete actions to address humanitarian needs and invest in long-term solutions. This year's forum also includes a high-level segment on gender. With women among the most impacted in humanitarian crises, they're critical to finding solutions to emergencies. Our colleagues at the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tell us that this year, more than 12 million people need humanitarian assistance in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. But the humanitarian needs and response plans for each country received limited funding. Violence and insecurity restrict humanitarian access, while food insecurity, disease outbreaks, and climate shocks continue to drive the protracted humanitarian crises in the 3 countries. The $658 million plan for Burkina Faso is 28% funded, while the $578 million plan for Mali is 20% funded, and the $675 million plan for Niger is just 16% funded. In South Sudan, our colleagues at the UN mission in South Sudan have condemned deadly attacks by armed groups on communities in Tonj North, Warab State, on Sunday, which reportedly left more than 60 civilians dead and 50 others injured, along with widespread displacement. The nearly simultaneous attacks on Alabek and Akuk Bayams also led to the destruction and looting of property, including the theft of large numbers of cattle. The UNMISS officer in charge, Graham Maitland, said the intercommunal violence is causing immense harm to communities that are already vulnerable and risks further fueling further revenge attacks. The mission is launching a long-duration peacekeeping patrol to the impacted area to assess the security situation, investigate human rights violations, and help deter further conflict through protective presence and direct engagement with communities. The mission stresses the importance of this and other patrols to conflict hotspots being carried out unimpeded and without delay. The mission is engaging intensively with officials at all levels to de-escalate tensions and is urging the government to strengthen security in the area and hold those responsible for these atrocities accountable. Turning to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, our colleagues at the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tell us that efforts to expand treatment and surveillance continue, as the Ebola outbreak has reportedly claimed more than 2,000 lives. According to national health authorities, the number of reported deaths has doubled over the past 20 days, with an average of about 50 deaths recorded each day. The World Health Organization reports that between 60 and 70% of Ebola-related deaths occur in communities, with many patients reaching health facilities too late or unable to access care in time. We, along with our partners, continue to support the response, but our work is hindered by insecurity. OCHA tells us that according to local sources, at least 13 civilians were killed, several others were abducted, and homes were burned during an attack on August 7th in the village of Bananakol in Ituri. More than 28,000 people fled their homes towards Mombasa Center, where 36,000 people are already seeking shelter since April. OCHA and our partners continue to support the authorities and assess needs in impacted areas. We reiterate our call on all parties to the conflict to protect civilians and facilitate safe and sustained humanitarian access to communities impacted by both violence and the outbreak. Turning to Myanmar, the Independent Investigative Mechanism released its annual report today, showing a pattern of deliberate attacks on civilians by the Myanmar military. These include aerial strikes on homes, schools, medical facilities, and camps, as well as arbitrary detention, torture, and sexual violence, which escalated ahead of January's elections and has continued since then. The mechanism is also investigating alleged atrocities involving armed groups opposed to the military. The report, covering July 2025 to June 2026, says the military's growing use of paramotors and drones has made attacks harder for civilians to detect or flee, and that some responsible units have been identified. It also documents detentions under 2025 law criminalizing election criticism, under which numerous individuals have been arrested and now face up to 20 years imprisonment or the death penalty for activities such as posting critical comments on social media. Further information is available online. The Secretary General announced today the appointment of Major General Javed Ahmed of Pakistan as the new force commander for the United Nations mission for the referendum in Western Sahara. Major General Ahmed succeeds Major General Muhammad Fakhrul Hasan of Bangladesh, who completed his assignment on the 2nd of August 2026. The Secretary General is grateful to Major General Hasan for his exemplary service and leadership of MINURSO. Major General Ahmed brings to this position over 35 years of leadership and operational experience in the Pakistani Army and United Nations peacekeeping. He served as Director General in the Ministry of Defense in Rawalpindi, overseeing command and control, local governance, and administration of all cantonment areas nationwide, comprising over 5.3 million citizens. Prior to this, he was the General Officer commanding of an infantry division, Director General of the Inspection and Evaluation Directorate at General Headquarters, and Force Commander, Northern Areas. More information online. I just want to flag that today is World Steelpan Day. Originating from early 20th century carnival percussion groups in Trinidad and Tobago, the steelpan is played with a pair of straight sticks tipped with rubber and is celebrated today for its cultural and historical significance. And last, we would like to say thank you to our friends in Pyongyang and Male for their full payments to the regular budget. The payments from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and the Maldives bring the number of fully paid up member states to 126. And with that, the floor is now yours. Yes, Edie.
Thank you, Farhan. Does the Secretary General have any comment on these drone strikes in western Libya that have attacked energy and other oil facilities, including recently setting off a very large fire?
Well, it's critical that no attacks target civilian infrastructure, including the crucial civilian infrastructure such as oil plants that the country needs to keep going. But we have also, of course, across the range of different conflicts, pointed out the problem of drones and other technologies being used for such attacks as well. Yes, Ephraim.
Hello, Farhan. You mentioned very quickly, fleetingly, the story of the abolishment of death penalty in Lebanon. Can you tell us more what the Secretary General thinks of this move, how significant it is for him that this is happening, understanding is the first country to do so in the region?
It's very significant. As you know, we've called for all countries to have a moratorium on the death penalty and move towards the progressive abolition of the death penalty. So for the Lebanese parliament to take this step is a big step forward. And our High Commissioner, Volker Turk, has come out with a statement today that gives praise to the Lebanese authorities for this step. Yes, Namu.
Thank you, Farhan. Any statement from the Secretary General on the legislation passed in Turkey on the Kurdish peace process, on how to go forward?
We're studying this as this progresses, but obviously we encourage all steps by the government of Turkey to forge ahead on peace with Kurdish groups, including with the PKK. Yes, Ephraim.
Okay, one more, Farhan, on the sentencing to death in absentia for war crimes of the former Syrian president Bashar Assad. Any comment on that?
Well, yes, we certainly take note of the decision. And what I can tell you is that addressing long-standing demands for justice, accountability, and truth can contribute to restoring confidence in institutions and laying the foundations for healing, national reconciliation, and sustainable peace. We recall the General Assembly's call to establish a moratorium on executions with a view to abolishing the death penalty. And we encourage the Syrian authorities to pursue accountability through a victim-centered transitional justice process that upholds human rights and the rule of law, strengthens national institutions, and contributes to national unity and sustainable peace. And the United Nations is committed to supporting transitional justice efforts in Syria in line with relevant mandates and in accordance with the applicable legal frameworks. Yes, in the back. Oh, you've asked? Okay. Okay, then Edie, you have the next question. Oh, she says.
Farhan, at the Security Council meeting that just ended, the Palestinian ambassador said the annexation by Israel in the West Bank is already taking place, and he urged UN member nations to take action along with the UN. What is the Secretary General's specific reaction to this claim?
Well, you'll have heard what Ramiz Al-Akbarov had to say, and I mentioned it at the start of this briefing, that he is extremely concerned about the seizure of territory in the West Bank. He's made it. He said that the pattern is clear, that Palestinian populations are increasingly being forcibly displaced across the West Bank before settlers seize vacated lands. And he said that it should be treated as an emergency requiring urgent action. And so the Secretary General wants member states to take steps to ensure that the two-state solution will not be placed in danger by the steps being taken.
And what specifically is he urging them to do?
Ultimately, the agreements and the status of the West Bank is such that this territory cannot be seized. It's not legal to take over Palestinian territories in the West Bank. And the Security Council has, as you know, made clear in its resolutions the status of those territories, and they have to make sure that these current facts on the ground do not overcome our efforts and the Council's efforts to ensure the continuation of the two-state solution. And you have a question?
Thank you, Farhan. Also, a question on the West Bank. Listening to both Mr. Al-Akbarov and UNICEF Deputy Executive Director Hanan Suleiman, you get a sense of how profoundly this settler violence is affecting an entire generation of Palestinian children. So we also keep repeatedly hearing that it is pushing the two-state solution further away. So beyond the political aspect of the two-state solution, how does the UN see these two populations eventually coexisting in the future, especially when questions of justice and accountability remain unresolved for these children? And thank you.
Ultimately, Israelis and Palestinians have no choice but to find a way to live peacefully with each other. Both populations exist and exist in large numbers, and they exist side by side. The United Nations and other parties, through their support for the two-state solution, have devised a system where the two parties, the two peoples, the Israelis and Palestinians, can live side by side in peace and security with each other. That is the core of what peace efforts for decades have been, and those need to be supported and not undermined. All right, have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.